Hi friends, hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello, hi. Today's video is one that I'm actually really excited for. I did a video kind of similar to this, God, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but it was a pretty long time ago where I basically talked about and discussed YouTuber affiliate links and sort of broke down what they are, how they work, how people utilize them, different ways you can make money through them. And recently I was doing a video where I talked about influencer scam culture. You can check that out down below. But I was gonna put it up here, but I always forget to do that. So it's down there. I might forget to put it down there too. It's like 3 videos ago. I made a video talking about influencer scam culture. And in that video, I mentioned that I think it'd be really cool to do a video kind of breaking down how YouTube sponsorships work, because I think a lot of the reason that people have a lot of distrust for sponsorships is because people don't really know how they work, or like how YouTubers actually get paid, or different factors of it. So I thought it'd be fun to at least sit down from my perspective. I do want to give the disclaimer that obviously every YouTuber is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's going to have a different experience with sponsorships. I can obviously only speak from my personal experience or from what I've heard from like my friends who do YouTube as well. Based on the notes I've compared with other YouTubers I've talked to, this is generally kind of how it goes, but obviously for everybody it's going to be different. Now, the one disclaimer I do want to give is, and I want to say it right up front because I don't want people to feel like clickbaited, I'm not going to talk about how much money I actually make from sponsorships and how much I make per post. Pretty much the whole entire reason I don't want to do that and / can't do that is because when you sign contracts to be sponsored, you usually can't disclose the amount of money that you have been paid by the brand to be sponsored. So when it comes to actual like dollars earned per brand deal, I couldn't tell you like how much Casetify is paying me per post. Like, I can't do that. But I will say right up front, for me personally, and I know for other influencers that I'm friends with, or just ones that I've watched who've talked about it, I know that brand deals vary very heavily between brand to brand. Different brands pay very different rates. My rates across my YouTube channel for the sponsorships that I have done are like drastically different. Some are significantly higher, some are significantly lower. It really just depends on like how badly I want to work with a brand. If they're offering a little bit less, but it's a brand I really believe in, then I'm like, okay, hell yeah. Or if it's a brand that I already loved and they're offering me this like crazy amount of money, that's a dope bonus. But yeah, so it definitely kind of varies from sponsor to sponsor. No sponsor pays like exactly the same amount. But later on in this video, I am going to give kind of a formula that you can use to figure out how much you should be charging as an influencer if you have a social media platform, just to give like a little helpful tip. The formula I used to use before I got under management. So, and before we jump into this video, today's video is sponsored. So let's roll to that. I'm completely kidding. It's not sponsored. That would be way too meta for me. But I think that was a beautiful segue into our first point, which is that literally any content on the internet can be sponsored. Like truly anything, any video, Instagram posts, TikTok, Twitter. I know there's like tons of sponsorships on Twitter that are undisclosed, but tons of those types of things. Any content can be sponsored. So technically I could have put a sponsor on this video if I wanted to. So any content can be sponsored, right? But how does that process work? Like, let's start at square one. I, in my time on YouTube, have been through a few different avenues for getting sponsorships. The very first sponsorship I ever took was a brand that was like a fashion monthly subscription box brand. They reached out to me, the brand itself reached out to me, and they said, we will pay you this amount of money to do like an unboxing. At the time, number one, I looked into the service, it had really good reviews. And also at the time I was kind of thinking about doing more sort of like fashion-y content. And so I was like, sure, whatever. And they offered me an amount of money. And at the time, I think I had like just over 100,000 subscribers. And I didn't really know what I should be asking for however many views that video got. It probably got like 10,000 views, but I didn't really know how much money I should be asking. So they told me a number and I was like, sounds great. That sponsorship was very, very, very different than how I do sponsorships now. Like crazy different. I didn't have to send in the video for approval. I didn't have to clear anything with them. They didn't really give me any sort of talking points to go through. Like, they literally just sent me the box and they were like, make a video and we'll pay you X amount of dollars. I would say that that's pretty standard and typical for people who are maybe smaller YouTubers. Like, I would say if you're like less than 100,000, that's a pretty typical sponsorship deal. And frankly, if it's a company like that where you're like, I like the product, I like what I'm getting, I like the service, I don't see a problem with doing that. But it's definitely a very different vibe. For example, I remember with that sponsorship, I literally had to like hound them to pay me because they said they were gonna pay me in like a set amount of time and then they just didn't. So I had to like really be on them about paying me. And then when they finally did pay me, they paid me through PayPal and it was like the wrong, they sent it as like a goods and service or something. And so PayPal was like, you don't have any receipts that you sent them a good or service, so we can't release the money to you. And then they had to like send it back. It was a whole thing. Like getting paid was horrible trying to do it myself. And honestly, after that experience, not that it was a bad experience or like a bad brand, I just think that it was a very sort of like informal way to do a sponsorship. And so I was kind of like not about it. So I didn't really do any other sponsorships for a really long time until the end of last year. Basically at the end of last year, I was approached by a few different people who ran management companies. I feel like it's really, really important right now in the video to distinguish the difference between a management company and an MCN. An MCN is a multi-channel network, and MCNs used to be way more popular a few years ago. I think now YouTubers are kind of seeing that like they're not really the best option, but MCNs, what they would basically do is they would get you sponsors and they would do sponsored content with you and they would do all of the same things that a manager would do. But on top of that, they offered some other services. And the way that MCNs worked was you set up your YouTube AdSense account, which is how you get paid through YouTube. Forgetting about sponsors entirely for a second, the YouTube AdSense program is a huge source of revenue for YouTubers. And if you signed with an MCN, you were signing over your Google AdSense account to them and all of your money was going through them, like sponsorships, YouTube revenue, brand deals. If you did like a collaboration, like basically all of your money was going through this MCN and they were taking a cut of everything. And a lot of YouTubers got absolutely screwed over by this. I know Carrie Dayton made a video a while back talking about her experience with an MCN. I think it's a really good look into the way that if you weren't like a massive top tier creator, a lot of smaller YouTubers were treated by MCNs because they were basically signed on with all of these promises that they were gonna help them grow, they were gonna help them edit their channels, they were gonna do all this work for them, and then they really didn't do any of that work for them, but they still took their 30% cut because technically the YouTuber was signed with an MCN. A lot of YouTubers, I think too, fell into this at the time when it was happening because it seemed like a really appealing deal and a really good way to make money. But there's been a few crashes of MCN companies. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like a couple years ago at this point, there was a huge MCN that just randomly closed and they held all of the YouTubers' payment. They weren't paying them out for their AdSense. They weren't paying them out for the sponsorships they had done. Like withheld all of these funds from all these really massive creators, probably totaled up to millions of dollars that they were withholding from creators. And I think after that happened, a lot of people had a lot of distrust for MCNs, and personally, I think the whole MCN thing is like absolutely ludicrous. I think anytime somebody is trying to come in and take part of your YouTube AdSense, unless they're going to be like editing videos for you or being like a social media manager for you, like they're providing you with a service, nobody should be taking your AdSense money. And on top of that, even if you did have somebody coming in doing like video editing or something like that, the money should be going through you first and then to the person that's helping you, not the other way around. So this is just like not the point of the video, but a friendly reminder that MCNs are like not great and I do not like them as a YouTuber. The difference between an MCN and sort of a traditional manager, at least for me and the managers that I talked to when I was sort of looking to get a management company, the difference was that management companies, they didn't have anything to do with AdSense or YouTube or anything like that. Their sole sort of job was to help me get sponsorships and like that was it. And they still take a cut of the sponsorships that they bring me. However, they're doing all of the work to get those sponsorships. I personally am totally fine with the people I work with taking a cut because they work their asses off to find good sponsorships, to constantly communicate with me about sponsorships. The girl I work with, her name's Brooke, shout out to her, she's phenomenal. Like I can't speak highly enough about management companies that solely their whole thing is to get you sponsorships. So my experience was that at the end of 2020, I started getting emails from different management companies who were basically like, hi, my name is Jack, let's just say, and I am a part of this management company company and I'm trying to find people for Casetify, and Casetify is willing to offer X amount of dollars for this long of a video and they'll send you product. Are you interested? Now at the time, and I did not realize this, but at the time, what I realized after the fact is that a lot of times these management companies will reach out to you, have you do a couple of sponsorships just to see how it goes, just to feel out if you would be like a good fit to fall under their sort of network of influencers that they have. And so even though you're not technically signed to them, they are still helping you just to do sort of a trial run. And I learned that that's what happened, was that I was kind of getting a trial run done by a bunch of these people, when at the time I had no idea what was happening. I was just like, oh cool, like I love this, like I get to work with these brands I actually like. Because for the longest time on YouTube, I was literally getting offers for sponsorships for like diet teas and like teeth whiteners and like just stuff that I never was interested in. But then suddenly I had these brands that I actually knew who they were. I had heard of them. I had used their products many a time. And it was cool to be able to finally work with brands that I like actually knew and believed in and was like, I feel good promoting something like this. So anyway, a lot of these companies, when they're reaching out to new influencers, they'll kind of do it on a trial run basis. There are some companies that just reach out immediately and they're like, we want to sign you. I actually really, I guess this is personal preference. I kind of liked the sort of trial basis approach that a few of these people took, because it kind of helped me to figure out if like I liked to work with them as a company. I think a lot of people forget this, because I've talked to a lot of my friends about this sort of dynamic too. But I think when you're new to all of this, it can all seem really kind of just like intimidating, because like you don't know what's going on. You've never done sponsorships like this before. You've never worked with a management company before. Like a lot of it can seem very intimidating, but I think it's really important to remember when you're looking for a management company to work with or whatever it is, it's really, really important to make sure that you remember that like you, as much as you want to do well for them, because like you want to be a good sort of, you know, talent for them, as much as you want that, you also want to remember that you need to be a good fit with the company. So there was one company I worked with and I was doing this sort of like trial run thing, and they were very, very focused on like getting as many advertisements as possible. And they were offering me all these like really outrageous deals with like brands that I knew I would never want to work with. And they were definitely a lot more monetarily motivated, which is completely fine for a company to do that. But it wasn't a good fit for me because like that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have to be made to feel bad if I like didn't want to take a sponsorship or something like that. So after working with a couple of these brands and doing a couple of different sponsorships with a couple of different management companies, I finally found the one that I ended up signing with at the beginning of 2021. And I've been working with them now for the past, I think 10 months, 11 months. Something like that. And it's been great. I've had a great experience with them. They are wonderful and they have helped me get a lot of different brand deals and have a lot of different access to brands that I never would have had. The way that these management companies work is they basically are like the middleman between you and the brand. So my management company has a ton of different connects to a ton of different brands that do social media advertising. And so they'll say, okay, we know that, what's a good example of like one I've done? We know that Felix Gray, right? The blue light glasses that I really, really like. They're like, we know Felix Gray wants to have somebody do a sponsorship in February. So we're going to pitch them you and your channel. We're going to show them your analytics and then we're going to pitch a rate and then we're going to negotiate the rate with them. So they're going to negotiate it for you. Whether a YouTuber is doing it through a management company, an MCN, or they're just doing it solely by themselves, negotiation in pricing of what you're going to pay an influencer to do a sponsored post happens in almost every single deal that I have ever been a part of. A lot of influencers will kind of handle the negotiations via a rate sheet, which is basically just a document that basically says what kind of content they're willing to do for what amount of money. So maybe it'll say, I'll do a 30-second advertisement at the beginning of a video within the first 10 minutes. For 30 seconds, I'll talk about your product and in return, you'll pay me like $1,000. And that's what their rate sheet says. And it goes through like, if they wanted you to do a sponsored Instagram post, how much you would charge for that. And that's the way a lot of influencers kind of go about starting their initial negotiations, is just sending over a rate sheet. But usually there's some back and forth. That's kind of why it's hard with sponsorships to like talk about the money aspect, because it really is so different with every brand. Every brand has an amount of money that they're willing to pay or like won't pay, and every influencer also has that. So it really just depends on what that brand's budget is, what they're willing to pay their influencers, and also vice versa, what the influencer is willing to do at the budget that the brand has. So that's kind of how a lot of behind the scenes stuff works. Most influencers I know do have management companies that do the work on their behalf for sponsorships, but I also know some that handle everything themselves. So it really goes kind of both ways. is. So then finally, you've hooked up with this brand, either your manager has or you have personally, you've negotiated down a price, then it kind of comes down to talking about terms of a sponsorship. I have done a ton of different types of sponsorships that have a ton of different terms. The most common term I see thrown into sponsorship deals is a minimum view requirement. So most brands base sort of the success of a sponsorship on the views that the video gets and also the engagement that the sponsored content brings them. So some brands, some that I even work with, have a minimum view requirement that a sponsored post needs to meet. So for example, at the top of my head, one of the brands I'm thinking of, the minimum I have to meet a view count of 75,000 views whenever I post a video with this brand. I have never not met that minimum view count because I'm very careful about what videos I put stuff on. Like I would never put a sponsored post on like a video that I knew was kind of just for me and like was just fun and like maybe wasn't gonna get the most views. So I'm usually pretty strategic about it, and I would assume most other YouTubers are as well. You wanna do right by the brand because they are paying you. So you wanna make sure that a lot of eyeballs are going to see a post if you can. Obviously there's no way to predict views, but you know, what I've heard, because I asked about this, because I saw that there was like a minimum view requirement, is that if you don't meet like the minimum view requirement, that usually just means they're entitled to another post and basically it would be free for them. You would put another sponsorship on another video and that would be a part of the initial cost, basically something like that. So I personally don't think that's too crazy of a concept to have like a minimum view requirement. I think just what you would want to be mindful of is know what your own average view count is on your videos, because if you're averaging like 100,000 views a video, which is great, if you're averaging that but they're saying a minimum view requirement would be 500,000 views, that's not really something you want to agree to because it's not your usual. You never want to agree to something that's like significantly higher than what your normal is. The other thing I've seen is sometimes brands will pay you more if you get more views in a certain amount of time. So I've done sponsorships where the brand is like, we'll pay you a flat fee no matter what, regardless of the amount of views you get. But if you get X amount of views, we'll pay you this amount more. And if you get this amount of views, we'll pay you even more. So they're almost kind of incentivizing you right off the bat to put it on a video that's going to get a high number of views, which again, I don't really think that's a problem. If they're willing to pay you more to be on a like good video, a video you think is going to do well, I think that's a benefit to both the creator and the brand because they get a lot of people seeing their sponsorship and the creator gets paid if the video does well. So I think little like terms like that are good. Those are kind of the overview terms, but when it comes to specific sponsorship terms, it is ridiculously different brand to brand. There are some brands that will provide you with PowerPoint presentations of what they want you to say, how they want you to say it, points they want you to hit, the brand message, sort of like different script like suggestions, so like different ways you could say things. They really have specific requirements, a specific vision in their head of how they want a sponsorship to look. Like that is what they're gonna go with. And so with those brands, you definitely have to be a little bit more willing to just sort of accommodate what the brand is really looking for. However, with other brands, they'll send you like a one-page sheet that's just like, hey, just make sure you mention your promo code, and you basically have free reign to talk about everything the way that you want and do everything the way that you want. And personally, those are the sponsorships that I really like taking. And I know actually a lot of influencers like taking those ones because it's a lot more fun and more personable to be able to just sit down and be like, hey, this is why I like this product, as opposed to trying to meet all of these requirements that they have listed that you're supposed to mention and do all of these different things. It just feels more organic. I get why some brands like something that's a little bit more scripted, but I also feel like from an influencer perspective, I actually enjoy filming sponsorships that are like, hey guys, like I like this and here's why. And I also would imagine, just from like an influencer point of view, that those videos do better for brands. Like I would imagine that when you can be just more honest and open and talk like yourself, those videos and those advertisements are probably way more effective than trying to like read from some script. But regardless, different brands want different things is kind of the point of that. So you're an influencer and you filmed this sponsorship. You mentioned all the talking points that were required. You did all of that. You edit all of that together, and then you have to take a copy of that advertisement and you need to send it to the brand for approval. This part is very important, and I learned that very quickly. In my first real call with my management company, company, there were like 2 points that they really hammered home for me. Like, my team is very chill. They're very nice people. There were 2 points where they were very serious in that meeting. The first point was never, ever, 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 ever post a sponsorship before it has been approved by the brand. And point number 2, we'll discuss in a minute. But point number 1, never, ever, ever post before a brand has approved a sponsorship. Basically, how I like to do things on an ideal week would be I get my sponsorship in at the beginning of the week if it's gonna go live at the end of the week. It's much easier to do it that way because a lot of brands don't work on the weekends. So if you send something in on like Friday night and you're trying to get it approved for Saturday, it's probably not gonna happen. So in ideal times, when I'm like really on it, I will usually film my ad read at the beginning of the week, send it in for approval so it has plenty of time to be approved. Obviously, sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes you have to get sort of a quick approval, which sometimes happens, depends on the brand. Some brands approve way faster than others, but you send in for your approval. Usually I just upload mine to YouTube unlisted and then send the link to my manager who sends it to the brand. And then the brand gets back to my manager, and if they have any notes or any edits that they would like to make to the sponsorship, then they send that to my manager. My manager sends it back to me, and then I go back to the drawing board and I basically fix everything that they've asked me to fix. Usually, for the most part, there's not too many edits or anything like that from brands, especially if they have really clear guidelines that they want. There's usually not a ton of edits. Sometimes it's like, hey, this part sounded a little redundant, like maybe take this out. Or sometimes they'll be like, hey, your code that you're using is cap sensitive, so make sure it's all lowercase. Or like, hey, we didn't really love the music you put here. Can you put different music in? Things like that. It's never usually too crazy. Brands are never usually too nitpicky or crazy about the type of edits that they want. You make the edits that they want if they wanted any edits made, and then you send it back to your manager who sends it back to the brand, and then the brand either has more edits that they would like to make, which has happened to me a few times. But usually after the first round of edits, the brand then approves the video, and that means that you are good to let it go live. I know some YouTubers who work with brands, the brands want to see the entire finished video before approving. Most of the brands I work with, they're fine with just seeing the sponsored segment and making it clear that they want it in like the first 5 minutes of the video or whatever. So again, it really just varies based on the brand you're working with, the management company you're working with, all different types of things. I've had a couple of brands that I've wanted to see the video beforehand, and like that's usually fine. I can send it over to them, but it's a varied experience. I will now get to my second point that my management company really drove home to me, which is that if you are going to be late on a sponsored post and you are going to go from 1 month to the next month and you're not going to get the video live, let everyone know as soon as you can. How these brands work is that per month they have a budget. They have an influencer budget. So they're saying, we're gonna give this person $10, this person $10, this person $20, and that is our whole budget for the month. And if they don't use that money, then it goes away and they get a new it doesn't like roll over to the next month. That money is just lost money for the advertisement team of that brand. I did not know this when I started. I did not know that you just like couldn't roll things over. I didn't realize how like strict the whole month thing was. That's like one of the #1 big things is like you really don't want to do that. I've had a few instances where I've had videos that I'm like really trying to get up on the last day of the month. It's a sponsored post and then something goes wrong. There's like a technical issue, something happens. And sometimes the brand is flexible and they're like, it's fine, we'll just pay you as if it was the last month. Other brands are a lot stricter and they're like, nope, this now counts as like new month, whatever. So it really just depends on the brand, depends on the budget, how strict everything is. It goes back and forth, but those are like the 2 big things I would say is you absolutely need approval from brands before posting. And on top of that, you have to post it within the month that they booked you for. So you've uploaded the video. I feel like this is like one of those videos they show at like job orientations where I'm like, so you've uploaded the video, now what? Well, now you get paid, which is the fun part. However, it takes forever. I started doing like consistent sponsorships on my channel at the end of January of 2021, and I did not receive a single paycheck until like April of 2021. Usually brands take about 3 months to pay people out. I know some brands that do it faster. I know some management companies that try to speed up the process. How my management company works is that they get the check from the brand, they take out their cut, and then they mail me a check, which honestly, I personally like just because it's very easy to keep track of those things, easier for taxes, just to have like check pay stubs basically. I just bought a house, so being able to show the bank like, hey, this came from Casetify, like has been very useful. So I like that they pay through check. I know other brands that do it through like PayPal, or they have like different money sending services. I like the check system. It works really well for my life, so I'm good with that. Each individual brand that you work with will have a sort of term in which they have to pay you by. So they call it net however many days they're going to pay you by. So usually it's like net 60 days. I would say of pretty much all of my sponsorships, 60 days is pretty much the average. However, some brands are like net 45 days, net 30 days. I have a couple brands that are like net 75 days. They're going to take a little bit longer to pay you. So it really just depends on the brand and their system, but that sort of net date is the time that they're legally supposed to send you the money by. And again, another really good thing about having a management company, this isn't like a sponsorship for a management company. I'm just saying that like I used to not understand why YouTubers would sign up for management companies, and then I got one and then I was like, this is so helpful. A big thing that they'll do is if a brand isn't paying you, they'll reach out to that brand on your behalf. So remember when I talked about at the beginning, my very first sponsorship experience, having to like literally track people down in order to get paid for the work that I had done? Your management company will literally do that for you. Like they will make sure that you are getting paid on your behalf. And again, I think that's really valuable, especially given that a lot of YouTubers, myself included, work with a ton of different brands. So if I was personally working with all of these brands, say I somehow had the connections to work with these brands, somehow, some way, I figured out how to do it, and I was the one that was keeping track of everything, and I was the one trying to make sure that I was getting paid at the proper times I was doing it, like I would lose out on money at some point because I would miss something, I would forget something. It's a lot easier to just have someone whose like sole job it is to make sure you're getting paid for the work you do. Now, for the final chapter of this video, I want to talk about sort of what the role of the influencer is in sponsored content, and what I at least personally think the role of the influencer is. And also again, just kind of like things I've learned this past year doing more of these. I think the biggest thing that I have to stress is the importance of being picky. It can be very easy, especially if you're working with a company or you're just getting a lot of offers, it can be very easy to see the amount of money that you could be making and be like, yeah, like I kind of know this brand, like, okay. It's really, really important to take the responsibility of promoting a brand seriously to your followers. I view YouTube as definitely more of a like marathon and not a sprint. You can definitely make very easy money very quickly, but over time, once your credibility is gone, that's not something that you can really get back, or at least not easily. Once you've kind of sold out and you're labeled as that, it's very, very difficult to get that credibility back and to get the trust of your subscribers back. So it's much more important to just take things slow, take brand deals that you actually truly believe in and trust, and maybe lose out on money in the short term from not being able to take these very flashy deals that people will send over, knowing that you still have your credibility, and that down the line, if you recommend something and you're sponsored by a brand that you love and you're recommending it, that your subscribers can know and trust that that product is good because you have a track record of recommending good products. I also will say it's really important to listen to feedback. I know a lot of bigger influencers, especially, who do a lot of different sort of sponsorships and things like that. And I'll look in the threads of their tweet, or I'll look in the comments of their YouTube video, and their subscribers are like, hey, this is like a scam. Like, this is not good. And the influencer just keeps doing it over and over and over again because they are working with that brand. Personally, I had only one experience where I worked with a brand and I got a really bad reaction from you guys. And I took that as a learning experience. It was a brand that I had tried, that I really liked, that I thought was a good brand. I had seen a bunch of my other friends who I really trusted using it. I tried the products. I really liked them. But it was a sponsorship that you guys were not liking. You weren't vibing with it. You didn't like the product. You didn't like the sort of message behind the branding. And at the end of the day, as a sort of social media person, you're literally just recommending things that you think your subscribers are going to like. I wouldn't want to recommend something that I think a lot of you would hate, because what is the point of that? Like, the whole point of a sponsorship is basically like a paid recommendation. So as an influencer or a YouTuber or a content creator in general, it's really, really important to listen to your audience. If they're telling you something's off about something, listen to that, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna buy out however many products you need to like have the brand make it profitable to sponsor you. Your audience is. So if they're not vibing with the sponsorship and they don't think it's a good fit, it's not a good fit. I will also say that I think it is, and I've talked about this before in so many videos, but I do think it falls on the influencer to try and do their due diligence. Obviously, there are gonna be situations where maybe a company does something you didn't know about. There's gonna be situations where maybe somebody's gonna have a bad customer service experience. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be recommending something, it's important to, number one, make sure if it's a product that you're actually using the product for a substantial amount of time before you talk about it. I cannot tell you how many sponsors I've seen for brands that are like hair care brands or skincare, and it's like a brand new package. And I'm like, you did not use that. We all know you didn't use that. You have to actually use the products that you're going to be recommending. I think that's like number one key, because you could be recommending a shampoo that doesn't even work for your hair. And you're gonna be telling all your subscribers to get it. It's a whole thing. Anyway, I think using products is very important, but I also think it falls on the influencer to try to make sure they're working with brands that align with them morally and ethically. I had a partnership with a brand for a pretty long time. I was doing monthly sponsorships with them, and I really loved the brand, but some stuff came out about them and their kind of business practices, and it didn't align with me ethically anymore. It didn't align with what I believe. And I will say it's kind of hard sometimes to lose that income and to say, no, I'm not going to take money, even though I like the brand, because I have kind of ethical concerns about this. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. However, kind of like what I said earlier, it's so much better to just make sure that the brands that you're working with align with who you are as a person. I also just want to say, because I think there's a lot of hate for sponsorships, and again, I hope that this video shed a little bit of light onto the process and like how everything works. But I can't stress this enough. I don't think sponsorships are bad. Like, I do them. I don't think they're bad. I think that honestly, and I know that it's hard to be like, oh, feel bad for content creators. YouTube AdSense can be very, very, very fickle. It can go away in a second. Your ad rates can drop in a second for no reason. A video could get demonetized for literally no reason. Like, you could do nothing wrong, still might not make money. To get guaranteed income from these sponsorships is like a really, really game-changing way that people can actually make content creation their full-time job. The stability that sponsorships can bring you, and the sort of, I don't want to say job security, because obviously sponsorships can kind of come and go too. But like for next year, I have a brand that I've signed a year-long contract with. So every month I'm doing a sponsorship for them. It's a brand I really love. And that means that every month next year, I can know, okay, at least I'm gonna make X amount of dollars from this brand next year. It makes it so you can like plan your life. Like anybody who runs their own business or like has a side hustle or does anything where money can be very sort of comes and goes can understand this. It's like one of those things where if you can get some sort of consistency in your revenue stream, it just makes you feel better about life. So I fully get the appeal for YouTubers. I get wanting to do sponsored content and wanting to post. It's why I want to do it. I love having at least a little bit of job security. I love knowing that if I'm working my ass off on a video, that even if YouTube chooses to demonetize it, that I'm going to get paid for that video and for all those hours of work that I put into it. And also, I don't think that all sponsorships are bad. Do I think bad sponsorships exist? Absolutely. But I don't think they're all bad. And I also think that they're very mutually beneficial for the brand, the influencer, and frankly, the consumer. If done right, it's a really nice way to get product recommendations from brands. Your favorite influencer or content creator is able to make some cash, and the brand is also able to make money. Like at the end of the day, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that the system has just been abused so much that that's where trouble can come in. You do have to make sure that you're disclosing the sponsorship. So YouTube has a really useful button that will literally just say clearly on the screen, this video is product placement. Most brands will make you say like this video is sponsored by blank. And also most brands will have you put it in the description box that the video is sponsored. So I don't think I've worked with any brand ever who has tried to get around the sort of FTC guidelines around that. But I feel like it's a dead giveaway that a brand is shady if the influencer is not disclosing the sponsorship, because that means they're fine with illegal activity. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys like this video. If you have any questions about how any of this works, if I left anything out, please let me know. I'd love talking about this stuff. I could talk about influencer marketing all day. I literally just spent an hour filming this. I thought it was gonna take like 20 minutes, but apparently I had a lot to say. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked in the little products tab and also down below. And yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!